welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. I'm your host, Hayleigh Hayhurst, and today I'm coming at you with a solo episode all about 3 things no one will tell you about entrepreneurship. We're wrapping up 2023, going into 2024, and I know a lot of people, it's time for them to start thinking about the business that they want, or they're doing their 2024 planning. And when you are jumping into entrepreneurship for the first time, it's a big learning curve. There's a lot you need to know. There's a lot you need to learn quickly. You need to learn how to do every single department's work. If you're a solo entrepreneur, you need to figure out how to actually make money, work with clients, set up client management systems. You need to figure out how to market yourself, do your own sales, all of these things. It can be very overwhelming at first, but if you talk to any entrepreneur, I'm sure we will all say it is well worth it. The flexibility that you have, the lifestyle that you get to have, you're in so much control of your business, your life, you're in control of your vacation time, you're in control of who you work with. If you're working in a corporate setting or just for a company, you don't have say on who you work with and what you do. When you're starting out, if you are by yourself, you will probably be having to do everything. And then as you grow, make more money, adapt, I'm sure that you will be able to outsource those things that you don't love doing. But in the beginning, it is a little bit of a grind. So I wanted to give you 3 points, 3 tips, I will say, of things that you probably are not expecting about entrepreneurship that you probably should know going into it. So for a little bit of background, I started my business, Espresso Podcast Production, back in 2020, in August of 2020. And I really just kind of fell into my business, quite honestly. I wasn't expecting it to work out. I wasn't expecting it to happen. I was just offering my services to some people. I was doing podcast editing and virtual assistant at the time. So long story short, someone came to me, a connection that I had, and said, "Hey, can you edit my podcast for me?" And I was like, sure. And she was in the online coaching space. And so once I edited her podcast and really built a connection with her, she said that she had other connections that she could put me in touch with who needed help with virtual assistant work, needed help with community management, social media, things like that. Then I moved into more of like a virtual assistant role with a specialty in podcast production. And then after I did that for about a year, I decided the virtual assistant work was not for me, and I then moved fully into podcast management, where I've then moved into more strategy. So my business now is editing, marketing, and strategy. So I offer full podcast launch. I'll launch your podcast for you. I will manage your podcast for you, everything from getting guests to being on other podcasts. And then I will also do strategy sessions. So how does your podcast tie into your bigger goal for your business, right? How are you going to tie the impact of your podcast to actually make you money in your business? So this did not happen overnight. This is almost 3.5 years in the works, and it has been just an incredible journey. But here's the 3 things that really no one prepared me for when I was first starting. Number 1, how much content you have to create as an entrepreneur. Oh my goodness. It is content after content. I mean, there's Instagram reels, there's Instagram posts. You always hear you need some posts, you need some reels, you need some carousels. And it just feels like there's never enough content that you can create. Then you have YouTube, then you have LinkedIn with the written posts, then you have TikTok with the short posts, or, going live and things like that. And so there's a lot of content that you need to create as an online service business. Even if you're selling products, I mean, there's a lot that you need to do. One of the reasons that I love podcasting is because I can sit down, I can record a podcast episode, and then I can cut clips from my podcast and put them everywhere. Okay, maybe they need different captions from place to place, but instead of sitting down and recording 10 TikToks for the week, or 10 Instagram reels for the month or so, I can sit down, record one video, and then cut it up into different pieces that I can then repurpose onto different platforms. It is the best thing that you can do for business, honestly, because not only are you sharing the reason for your business, your mission, you're sharing your voice and the way that you speak, and people can connect with you deeper, but also you're saving yourself time in the long run. Podcasts are very low cost to get up and running. When you are thinking about creating content, I highly, highly, highly recommend you start a podcast. It may sound daunting and you might be like, okay, Hayleigh, I really don't want a podcast. I'm sure you want the clips from the podcast. I'm sure you want to save like 4 hours, probably even more, like 8 hours a month in content creation. You could save that by just cutting it in half and recording some podcast episodes. So when I work with my clients, I work with business owners and brands who want to scale their business. I sit down with them and I'm like, okay, we're going to get you everywhere. Let's get you on TikTok. Let's get you on Instagram. Let's be posting this in so many different places that people cannot get enough of you. Everywhere they go, they see you. That's how businesses really become successful, when you get well known. So let's say in this podcast episode, I cut this into 10 different clips. Some are longer, some are shorter, but they're in 10 different clips. I can then go and, at a week, right? 10 extra videos for that week, because I'm doing 4 episodes a month. So then I can go and put those 10 on TikTok for the week. I can go put those 10 on YouTube Shorts for the week. I can go put those 10 on Reels for the week. I can then go put those 10 on TikTok, wherever else, Facebook Reels, everywhere. And so that 10 then turns into 50 because of all the different platforms that I'll be putting them on. And there's different people who will see you on different platforms. The audience I have on TikTok and the audience I have on Instagram are 2 different people, but they are the same ideal audience that I want. People who want to start a podcast, or people with a podcast who want to scale. So there's so much content you have to create. I mean, and this is just the beginning part with the clips. You can then take your podcast transcript and turn it into blogs. You can then take those blog posts and pull out some quotes and make some quote cards. You can then take those quotes and write other blog posts. You can then take pieces of it and repurpose it into a different story, or maybe like a training series. There is endless things that you can do when you actually sit down and record long form content. So that is just my spiel on why you're going to need to create so much content. So why not start a podcast? It will save you time in the end. Another thing that most people, you might be thinking about this, but there's a lot of uncertainties and risks that you're going to have to take in business. I mean, hiring when you're ready to scale. If you do want to start a podcast, it might make the most sense to hire a podcast editor for you. And yes, you are paying that money, but you're getting your time back, which could be more valuable than the hours you'll have to sit down and do everything I just said. Record the podcast, edit the podcast, cut the clips, make quote cards, all of these things. So there's a lot of uncertainty with finances in the beginning. You might have to hire a business coach to really get you up and started. I have a business coach right now, and it was a pretty decently sized investment, but by letting go of that money and getting her expertise, I've been able to make more money than I was before, and make that back. The very first investment I made in my business actually was a mindset coach, and that really set me up for success down the line. I can always think back to what she taught me, and it really has just built a lot of resilience and being able to trust myself when things are uncertain, or if I need to do something new, like my newest goal for 2024 is just to show up everywhere and be on YouTube more with training videos. That's uncertainty if people will watch, if people will resonate with it, if I'll get clients, and it will take me time to do the editing, the recording, and all of that. But it is well worth it because I know that I trust myself enough and I trust my business enough to succeed in what I'm putting out there, and that what I'm putting out there, I know that people need. So really, you just need to build that confidence. I mean, maybe this is a 2-point thing where you have to expect uncertainty, but you also will build so much confidence in yourself and your abilities. So I think that that is a two-sided dagger, two-sided sword, whatever it is. But people will not tell you how scary it can be at times to be an entrepreneur. But I don't think that that's a bad thing. I honestly think that being scared about succeeding is normal. I mean, it was probably normal when you were in school. It's probably normal in whatever job you have before you become an entrepreneur. Like, am I going to get laid off? Am I going to get fired? That's uncertainty. That's scary. So why not just trust yourself and your own business and just feel like the uncertainty, you can always trust yourself and be confident. And number 3, this is also a 2-point tip. You will constantly be learning in your business. There is an endless amount of learning to do when you have a business. Like I said before, you're going to be wearing all the hats. I graduated college with a journalism degree. And that is where I learned a lot of writing and podcasting and audio engineering. But what I didn't know was how to balance my books or even how to, I did learn some social media marketing, but not a ton, right? I didn't learn sales. Sales is something that I had no idea about. I think I'd be horrified if I went back and listened to some of my first sales calls. Oh my God. That is not a path I want to go down. It honestly might be interesting to see how far I've come, but that would be horrifying to see. Especially the sales that I didn't make. If I went back and listened to those, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, I wouldn't hire me either at that point. This was early on in business. So you're constantly learning. But here is the tip I want to share with you. There's so many podcast episodes, there's so many books, there's so much that we can learn from. There's business coaches, there's courses, there's an endless amount of opportunities for us to learn. But at some point, you need to stop learning and take action. You need to trust yourself, back to the trust that, yes, maybe you're not an expert in something yet. But you're not going to become an expert by taking another course or reading another book. You're going to become the expert by taking that knowledge that you have and actually putting it into action. Crazy, right? You have to be able to execute what you're learning because there's like such a big blocker in us sometimes. It's just very important that there comes a point where you can fully trust your ability to do something. And I'm sure when you get that first client or you get that first client in a new offer that you have, that there's going to be a moment where you're like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't trust myself. Maybe I need to not work with this client. Maybe I need to keep learning. Maybe I just need to do a little bit more research before I can put this offer out into the world. And then you stay in that. You keep learning. There's people who go to school for decades and decades and decades. And yes, they are very smart people. But there comes a point where you can't learn anymore without taking action. So if you think about what is something in your business that is kind of like a learning curve, but you almost want to do it. Like, let's say you want to write a book. Maybe you don't have an MFA. And maybe that's okay. Maybe you don't need one, right? I work with a lot of authors, actually, who some of them do have MFAs, some of them don't, and they all can write. amazing work. Whatever you feel most comfortable with, but definitely take that action. I hear a lot of people online who want to start offering something. Maybe they want to start a podcast. Maybe they want to start a blog. Maybe they want to become an influencer. And the first thing, of course, that you should probably do is some market research and see what it takes. But the second thing that you should do is start doing that. It's called messy action. Just do something that will lead to that result that you want. So instead of taking a course, learning all of that, and then you're like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to start this blog. I know how to do it. And then you think, well, maybe I need to learn more about writing, or maybe I need to learn more about how to use my writing to make sales, or maybe I need to learn more about Pinterest, like how do I put my blog on Pinterest? Instead of going through this one course, learning everything, and then thinking that you need to learn more to do something else, just do it. And if you find that you need to learn more, then learn more and then do it. But you don't always need to be in a new course, reading a new book, in a new podcast episode, listening. There's so much personal development that you can do, and I don't want you to get these two things confused. Yes, listen to the podcast episodes. Yes, read the books, but don't let that stop you from taking action. In my business, I am always learning. I'm constantly learning and adapting and taking the new things that I've learned and putting them into my business. But it doesn't stop me in my day-to-day. I am still bringing on new clients. I'm still putting out content. I'm still doing my marketing. I'm still doing sales. I am still doing everything that I have to do to make my business run and grow. And then on the side, when I have time, I'm learning more and more that I can then put into my business. So I'm not stopping anything. I am continuously learning and adapting while I'm continuously growing. There's no halting. There's no roadblocks. Of course, there's things I could do better. And I'll get better when I keep doing them. So if you're someone who just doesn't have a lot of trust in yourself and you think that maybe you're not the expert and maybe you're not ready to start your own business, everyone feels that way. And how you get out of that is to actually take action. So I hope that this episode was helpful for you and you're feeling inspired to actually start your business, start the podcast. 2024 is going to be a big year for business. I'm really excited. I'll probably be sharing some of my 2024 business goals coming up soon in the new year. And just continuing to share episodes on this podcast and continuing to help other people start and grow their podcasts. I mean, I love what I do. I love the people I work with. I love helping brands expand. And in 2024, one of my biggest goals is to work with clients who I can really make your business just show up everywhere with the power of media and the power of podcasting. So like I said, I hope you loved this episode. I would love it if you could leave me a review or send me a message on Instagram telling me what you thought of this episode. You can find me on Instagram at Espresso Podcast Production, or you can also visit my website, espressopodcastproduction.com, to learn a little bit more about my business, who I help, what I do, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast, Employee to Boss, because every week I'm interviewing new entrepreneurs about their journey from what they used to be doing, being an employee somewhere, being a student somewhere, to growing their business to becoming successful. So it's a lot of like empowering, fun stories from really cool entrepreneurs. I love it because I get to learn a lot and I also get to meet the coolest people through my podcast. So be sure to check out some past episodes and I will catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.